So welcome everybody. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you to the panelists for joining us tonight. It might be a little bit silly because it's like 7:12 or something like that, but it'll be good. It'll be fun. And so I was wondering if we can go through introductions for everybody, and sort of what you do and a little bit of who you are. So Kristine, do you want to start us out?
Sure. I'm Kristine Songco. I am a writer. I have been staffed at Nickelodeon, CBS, TBS, The Hub, and Dreamworks, and a bunch of other short gigs at places like you do. Most recently, I was story editor for Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts on Netflix. Hey!
Love that show.
So good. Please watch it. Third season just dropped. And
yeah.
And I'm currently a
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Currently co-AP on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous.
Awesome. Right on. Rosemary?
Hi, yes. So I am a manager for global talent development and inclusion at NBCUniversal. And sometimes it's like people just kind of wonder, what does that mean? But what's kind of cool is that for our group recently expanded to cover all of film, television, and streaming and animation under Universal and NBC. So what we do is we have like our pipeline creative programs to kind of infuse diverse talent into all of the writers' rooms, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and in the workforce too. So that's been like our big focus, and we have a Universal Animation Writers Program. But before that, I was a development exec for the last like 7 years over at Nickelodeon, but now we're here.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, welcome, Rosemary. What do you think, Jason? Who are you, and why are you 15? And
I'm just here in this box, just living in the computer. Yeah, I'm Jason Caparaz. I'm a VP of development over at Dreamworks Animation Television. We develop shows for preschoolers to kids up to 11 and just kind of the whole demo. I've been in LA for about 4.5 years. So working as a dev exec here on the team and at Universal too. We're all one big happy. Prior to this, I was at Nickelodeon for a very long time. Worked with Rosemary for quite a long time, quite a bit. Started my career actually as an NBC page way back when. This is like, God, before 30 Rock. So it was before it was like a known job. And then, my formative years, as they say, I kind of spent just working as a PA all over New York City. And then I finally got to Blue's Clues at Nick. I worked on that show for a little bit, and then I've kind of been here ever since. So that's me. And Rosemary talks about that team she works on. Just I say this all the time, but they do really they do the good work. Like we do a lot of the things that people see on front of the camera and like all the very some of the fancier stuff. But that group does really important stuff. I'm always in awe of what they do, and I'm also just a huge fan. I mean, shameless plug for our own stuff, but Kipo's incredible, and Jurassic, we were talking about it before. You guys haven't watched it yet. It is so intense, but in the best way. It's really good, like redefining what kids' action shows can be. So,
dang it.
All that love. You weren't kidding about all the love we were gonna be.
No. This is the love fest. When you get a bunch of Filipinos in a virtual call, it's a literal love fest, and I'm unabashed about it, and that's okay. That's okay. That's cool. I mean, I love what you guys have done, and let's celebrate each other. So, I mean, I love that. That's awesome. So, man, I love that you guys have sort of cross-pollinated at some point whether it's like Nickelodeon or DreamWorks and that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to get back into like a whole kind of let's what was your childhood like, but what were some of the experiences that you guys felt like drew you to animation at an early age, because we all have those experiences, right? Yeah. We'll start with Kristine. And then you can hot potato to anyone.
Ooh. I think growing up, so I have one sister who's 13 years older than me. And she kind of moved out when I was still young. And I think I was a really weird kid because I was like left alone a lot. Like, so I think that helped me with like kind of grew me for animation because I just like had, you know, a lot of freedom to let like imagination run wild, but also at the same time I had, you know, a big Filipino family that I had cousins that lived 10 minutes away. So I wasn't like completely a loner. But I would do these, I don't know, I'd like make board games for myself. Like, how did that even work? But like, leave scavenger hunts for myself and be like, okay, you're going to forget the clues that you just left for yourself. And then in a month, you should go. And I was weird. I was a weird little kid.
Did you, Kristine, at that time, were you already writing stories?
I did. I wrote like little like picture books. At one point, I wanted to be Shel Silverstein, and I wrote like books. So I didn't know that I wanted to be an animation writer specifically, but I knew I liked writing. And when I was, you know, I went to college at Cal State Fullerton and tried to take as many writing things as I could, and then ended up interning at Nickelodeon and kind of fell into animation, but feeling like, oh, duh, like you should be here.
Right. And I feel like that's funny that like at some point, like that's what I love about Nickelodeon. I mean, it kind of feels like everyone sort of crosses paths there in the beginning of their careers, or just crosses paths in general. So I know, Rosemary, you were there too, right?
And I was an intern there too.
And Nick,
like, yeah, so intern at Nick that kind of stayed and worked their way up the ranks. But I mean, before then, I mean, I was the oldest, and I was already just going to disappoint my parents because I wasn't going to be a doctor or a nurse. So like, they got over that. I think they knew like once I was super into art and like dead set on going to film school, they're like, oh yeah, no, she's not going to be a nurse. Let's pressure the next child. So like I went to film school, but then afterwards, like I was just bartending, and that was a whole nother conversation because, you know, what do you do with a film degree? I got so many questions from my parents. And then I found like finding myself in odd jobs, and I was actually working in a classroom, like as an in-class tutor with kids. And I really loved working with kids. And that's when it like clicked. It's like, oh, I have this background in film and visual storytelling, and I love working with kids. So why not work on like kids media? And I was in love with Yo Gabba Gabba, obsessed. And so I was like, I need to find a way to work with this team, whoever's behind this. So I did that. Like I went back to school, and then I found myself at the Nick internship in New York. So
yeah, but you were, I'm sorry to bring it back, but you were a teacher in teachers program in Columbia, right?
Oh yeah, it was a teacher's college, so it was like specifically for instructional media, like technology and all of that stuff for like media learning. So I knew like I wanted to do like educational television of sorts, like that whole edutainment space. And just knowing that a lot of people that worked on the shows that I loved, like Blue's Clues, like I'm trying to think of everything Laura Brown worked on. She did so much. Ellie went to teachers college, so they all kind of came up in that space, just the understanding of the kid brain.
Right,
and
but that's a hard pivot from education to animation, yeah?
Not really. Not whenever you're in the kid space. Like for preschool content, it was really easy to get in there because it's just like the perfect merger of everything that they're learning and something that they can understand. So it just felt so natural, and I felt so comfortable there because I had loved art growing up, and yeah. it was really easy to feel like, okay, this is where I should be.
Right. My gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a hard pivot, but like maybe there's a lot of similarities on what you were doing or where you want to go, and that's where you met Jason, right?
Yeah, yeah, she was our intern, and we always knew she was going to be a star. Rosemary and I would always geek out about stuff, which was really nice. Yeah, I mean,
Wait, geek out about what specifically?
so like I was the exec on Yo Gabba Gabba when it was on the
Yeah.
air, so that was the thing that we would just chat about a lot. And then I was telling somebody this story, Rosemary. Remember really when we went to that Aquabats concert?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome.
I was just like, what? I get to meet Christian?
Yeah, I know. It
freaking
was
out.
so sweet. You were so sweet. I mean, you just freaked out. But it's a weird thing. I mean, I know I was just really lucky because, for me, getting into animation, I have a lot of vivid memories of watching Saturday morning cartoons or coming home after school and watching cartoons or watching Tom and Jerry like after nursery school or preschool or kindergarten. Or like I don't know if you guys remember those like all like Channel 2, like NBC and ABC and CBS would do those like fall previews of the cartoons that are coming. And I used to live for those things, like and when they would happen. But like, I have memories of watching like Roy die on Robotech, like just some weird stuff you just see when you're like kind of like sits with you forever, which is really weird. But for me, I kind of knew, like similarly to you guys and probably everybody on this call, I definitely disappointed my family in not going into medicine or computers or anything at like a real job that anyone would really understand. But I majored in journalism, and I had a thing about either working in live TV and news or like maybe directing film or, I loved Muppet, all the Muppet Show and all, like puppets when I was a kid. So when I, after graduating college, I got that NBC Page gig and I kind of just worked all over New York City. And I worked for a live morning show. I did some publicity for Disney for a little bit and like all sorts of stuff. And then after bouncing around on shows, like everything from I worked on Oxygen and I worked at the show called Between the Lions, like a bunch of things. I ended up at Blue's Clues, which was, it's a hybrid show because it's live action and animation. And then kind of stuck it out for there just because I've always been a fan of animation and kind of the medium. I don't draw, I mean, thought about maybe writing at one point, but then when you realize that you're probably better off not writing and let writers write because, it's probably worked out. Yeah, exactly. So, but I was really lucky because at the time when we were at Nick in New York, and then Rosemary and I were on the preschool team. We did some 6 to 11 stuff, but we were mainly the preschool group. We were there for Dora the Explorer and the Backyardigans and Wonder Pets, and this kind of like really amazing time for preschool television. And I think to Rosemary's point about going from education to TV, specifically in that time when a lot of those shows were so curriculum driven. Like you kind of got the sense of why we had a lot of folks that went to like teachers college or majored in research or kind of like worked on that end of it that came over to our side. The magic was really when people got like how to make comedy, and tell jokes and still keep things entertaining. Sometimes the stuff's a little too curriculum based. It's just not as fun per se. But we were lucky enough to have leadership that kind of let us push the boundaries a little bit. And to this day still do. So it's good.
Right.
But yeah. But Kristine, by the way, not that I get into stuff, but my brother is 13 years older than me, and my sister's 12 years older. So I'm with you. I'm in the same just like they were around.
Yeah, I was the opposite. I was the ate that left, and I was 10 years older than everyone. I'm like, sorry guys.
Yeah, I'm closer in age to my nephew than I am to my sister. Like a nephew 7 years younger than me. So.
Oh, but that's funny.
And I have a nephew I'm a Lola because he's my husband.
So I'll kind of keep going forward, guys. Am I alone? No, I don't think I am yet. But for Kristine, I wanted to, kind of shed a light on what your path was like, like from breaking into that writing gig and then story editor gig and then the showrunner gig where you are now. Let's celebrate that, man. Although you've probably been doing that for like 3 years.
Technically co-EP, so like one below showrunner.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I, just a personal aside, I think I was watching Kipo or Rad had talked to me, but I was like, Kristine Songco, that's a Filipino, right? And then like, I just like texted Rad, and he's like, you know her? And she's like, yo, she's amazing. And I was like, is she open to writing on a show? And she's like, dude, she's showrunning a thing at Dreamworks. But I was like,
Rad is awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. My question was, you know, your path breaking into writing, and then kind of building your way up, story editing, and then kind of like running your own show.
Yeah. So yeah, I was at Nickelodeon as an intern, and it was kind of this crazy thing because it was the last semester of college. So by the time my internship was ending, I just had met with enough people to where I had 3 interviews lined up towards the end. And I went on the first one, and they immediately, like, I literally like went on the interview, went back to my cubicle, and then they called me and offered me a job. And I was kind of like, I don't know, I have these other meetings. And my supervisor across the thing was like, take the job. Are you crazy? Take the job. I was like, okay. And they were like, how soon can you start? And it was like, I graduate on Sunday. And they said, so Monday? So I started working the day after I graduated as an executive assistant on the Mighty Bee. And once they got picked up, I got promoted to script coordinator, and then worked on, and then that show didn't get picked up. So I went to Fanboy and Chum Chum again as a script coordinator. That show didn't get picked up, so I went to Tough Puppy. This is a pattern. I went to Tough Puppy as a script coordinator, but then finally got promoted to a writer, and teamed up with Joanna Lewis, who is my writing partner. So if I say we a lot, it's because I have a writing partner. I don't think I'm like royalty or anything. And then
I have a question.
Yeah.
I read about your partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it about that chemistry and kind of like 101 of like meeting someone that, you know, could be your,
Your partner.
101? Yeah.
So originally our boss just like teamed us up because we were both kind of new writers, and we just wrote well together. We worked well together, and it's good, especially in comedy. It's nice to have someone to riff off of and have someone else to laugh at your jokes, and you're just not so much in your head like, is this good? Is this not good? You kind of have, you know, the safety of at least one other person thinking that it's good. And then when other people were teamed up and we kind of saw that they didn't get along as great as we did, we were like, oh, I guess what we have is magical, and maybe we should do this forever.
It's really funny. Yeah.
So we've been partners for like 7 years now, and it's been great. And
Do
yeah.
you guys move as a unit of like, you know, you're writing on Kipo, she's writing on Kipo,
Yeah.
you write on, okay.
Yeah, this whole time, ever since Tough Puppy, I think from there, we went back and forth between live action and animation. We did Sullivan and Son at TBS, and then we did My Little Ponies for a while. That was our first story editing gig, and that was interesting because it was entirely freelance. So we didn't have like a room, but we knew how to, you know, tell stories and stuff. But that was really fun. And then we did Great Indoors at CBS, and, you know, I think the next time, I think after that, it was Kipo. And by then we had proved, you know, that we could be story editors and everything. So we ran that room, and then the next gig we're like, well, but you have to like keep going up the next gig you take.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's a later question, how you run the room, but I wanted to ask, thank you. Thank you, Kristine, man. Sounds amazing.
feel like I rambled for a very long time. I'm not gonna watch it again.
For Rosemary, can you elaborate on a little bit on what the day-to-day in the Universal Animation Live Action Writers Program is? Because I think that's awesome. Amazing.
It's such a cool program. Like when I heard about it, they brought me over from Nickelodeon to, and actually Jason referred me. He was like, hey, you should meet with, he's like, do you have to always make stuff, Rosemary? And I was just like, Jason, that's like what we do. Yes. And he was like, no, but you should meet with Emerlyn. She's super cool. He told me about the ABS CBN dinner. And then we actually connected, and getting to hear the work about what they do to just get more representation in front of and behind the camera was just like, that just made so much sense to me. I feel like I've seen too many shows in my time in animation where it's like a diverse lead character, and at that maybe like a diverse female character ran by a room of like all straight white men. And like, that just did not feel authentic to me. And I felt like this is my goal. And I wanted to really pivot and make sure that I could focus on that. So our team, like we have the writers programs. Right now, our live action writers program is going where they have executive mentors on the Universal production development side, as well as producer mentors. So that would be like anyone within our term deal producers. So like this year we have Colin Trevorrow as a producer. I think last year we had Kerry Washington and Eva Longoria. Dan Lin is a producer for someone this year. So it's just like a really cool mentorship component that we have. And now we have ambassadors that kind of do like master classes. So Amy Pascal is one of them. And Will Packer is another one of them. So they just kind of come in and talk to them. And Casey Lemons. And so they all kind of come in and talk to the writers and give them a sense of like what the process is like, and really just how to navigate the studio system. Because when we're making selections, we always find the people that rise to the top are pretty strong writers, but it's just about how to like polish them, how they can present themselves, how they can take these meetings and just really navigate something that maybe people from an underrepresented group don't have as much knowledge about, like the inner workings of like a general meeting, or, you know, how metrics works, how the analytics side works for film strategy. I mean, I was learning about that stuff too, because my background's all in animation, but I think that the idea is that we would do the same thing once we do launch the animation program. Is you kind of get to see every group that you touch as a writer, you know, not just how you work with other writers, but the whole machine.
I got a question, Rosemary, and this is kind of like coming from the standpoint if I was going to kind of quit my job now and be a writer, and then go fully towards that. And so these questions are going to be really, really preschool and really, really just kind of like newbie-ish. But like what should, you know, writers like include in their like scripts? Like what are you guys looking for in like these scripts, or like one-offs, or spec scripts, or feature scripts, or like pilot scripts and that kind of stuff?
I mean,
is there any kind of broad advice? I mean, because I mean, I don't know anyone in the industry in terms of like writing and that kind of stuff. So I can imagine that anyone that's applying to these writing like fellowships don't have anyone as well. But like, what do you think we can sort of? Yep.
Yeah, I think so. For our film program, you have to submit an original film spec script and then an original treatment that's not based on that script. So just like 5 pages of like an idea fleshed out for the first act is what we would do for the feature side. And then for our animation writing program, we actually cover both the feature side of animation and the TV side. And within TV, we also break it down between kids 6 to 11 and preschool. So it's actually kind of like 3 programs in one. But on the TV side, we asked everyone to submit 1 original spec and 1 original pilot. So that way you kind of get a sense to see like how they work within an existing show, and then how like their original voice takes them, you know, what ideas they have. And it's kind of the same thing too on the feature side, like with your feature spec, you know, that's your fully fleshed out feature. But for the treatment, we kind of give them a prompt of like, you know, specific genres and what you think a universal film could look like. So they would just kind of flesh out that original idea. But it's a little bit of both. But I will say like the things that rise to the top, especially in animation, are the things that are funny. And also, I mean, it's just so important for animation, and then also, you know, physical humor too, not just relying on the jokes, because when you're appealing to younger kids, all those jokes go over their heads sometimes. Like you have to remember they're like 5 when it's preschool, and it's like, oh yeah, they don't know what that is, or they can't really relate to the high school experience yet. So it's just like understanding that audience and their sense of humor. I think that's a big piece when we're looking at the program.
Yeah.
Writers.
That's awesome. What do you think, Jason?
I agree.
Man.
No, everything she said, I agree with. No, I think she's right. I mean, I think for whenever we get sample scripts from folks, you know, I think for us, it's always about reading. We'll read specs, you know, and I think it's always good to read a spec, and especially if you can figure out if someone knows how to write within a show voice. I mean, your assumption is that they're not obviously in that room, or, you know, maybe they're getting some help, but, you know, you want to kind of know that they can capture that voice and stay true to those characters, you know, whether it's comedies or dramas. But for us, we usually prefer original scripts, partially because you want to get what someone's like, how they write, you know, what their how they tell jokes, what they find to be funny. You know, there's the basic things like story structure and character development, and that stuff is very, you know, and it's kind of not the baseline, but that's the foundational elements that you want to know that people can execute against. But really, oftentimes, we just want to get a sense of what someone's writing voice and style is, you know, what they, and kind of where they push things, you know. All of the execs on our team, we all have our own personal preferences, you know, so, you know, we all look for certain things, but, you know, ultimately you want to be able to find a writer who can be versatile, but also has a strong sense of their own sense of storytelling that they can kind of really put through. And for young writers, just write. And that's the other thing, write, and also like join a writing group where people will give you notes, because and not people that will just yes you to death. Because I think oftentimes what we'll find is people are like, well, my friends really like this, and then you might want to get some people who can be a little more, you know, more critical eye with your stuff.
The ability to like adjust after notes is it's so important. And some things like, you know, in the beginning, I guess it's usually more on, you know, your editors or whatever to do that with you, but it's pretty valuable to be able to just like adjust for notes.
Yeah. One thing that I've
Also,
learned.
Sorry, Jason.
No, you go. Nope.
I was gonna say also just kind of making sure you're understanding the note behind the note too. Like there's so many times where we find ourselves giving the same note over and over because the writer hasn't actually been able to crack down like what the note behind the note is, like whether it's understanding your character's motivation or like, you know, what the conflict is. Just taking the time to like actually figure out what that is instead of just the face value of like, oh, well, why don't they get along or something like that. Yeah, just kind of breaking that down even more. Yeah,
and I think another thing for writers, especially animation writers, which I find I'm extremely happy about when someone can do this, but then I also find really, it makes me sad when they can't, is so much of what everybody does, especially writers, is pitch. You know, whether you're pitching ideas in a room or you're pitching a show idea to an executive or someone at a platform or a network. And I think a lot of folks, because we're all animation fans and don't ever think we'd ever need to stand up in front of a crowd or do this stuff. I do think, you know, when you find out people have taken like classes at the UCB or have taken public speaking classes or Toastmasters classes and things, it just helps. You know, it helps to kind of organize your own ideas, but it also, that presence of mind and being able to be a presence in a room is just so important and often overlooked by people trying to get into what we do. That stuff is just really, it's invaluable in a way that people can't qualify, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I took some UCB classes, just improv classes, and it's good to be terrified because that's kind of what that's the situation you're gonna be thrown in a lot. And it even just, you know, gets you to think a little bit more on your feet, which is, yeah.
Well, I mean, so much of what we do too, because we're artists making art, it's just, you have to be able to argue why you like your thing, you know, or why you stand behind your thing, you know, and you have to be collaborative, obviously, you know, and you have to be able to work with a group and a team and, you know, partners or whatever. But I think you need to be able to really articulate why you believe in something or why you want to push for something, you know, and I think you're right, Kristine. It's like stuff like improv classes or something that kind of has your mind work just at a certain speed at times. I think it's just really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to say really quickly, how do you guys, this is a personal thing, don't let anyone else hear. How do you guys come in and prepare before the big pitch in your small room before the big pitch? Is there anything that you guys do to sort of meditate and sort of tell yourself that kind of thing? Because I feel like that happens to me every day. Like, I was like, people, you know what I mean? I mean, like, is there like a huddle, an NBA huddle, like before the big pitch? And they're like, hey, Jason, this is a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like that like huddle, man. You know, is there anything you guys do mentally? Because I think that even applies to students as well, because students have to, at the end of their semester, pitch their work to them, you know, whoever is on the council of, you know, whatever, our CalArts or whatever. But like, I think that's a thing to talk about. You know what I mean? What do you think?
I mean, a lot of it's practice. You know, when we're kind of taking stuff out to pitch and we're working with writers or creators to get our stuff out there to bring to the platforms, you know, we rehearse a lot, you know, and a lot of it is, I mean, it's certainly a little easier now with the Zoom pitches because you can have your script in front of you and, you know, you can read or you have your notes and it's not as obvious as if you're reading from the page, if you're standing in a conference room somewhere. But it's a lot of practice. You know, I think people like rehearsing, you know, like they say, rehearse in front of a mirror, stuff like that. I think that helps. For me personally, you know, I always just feel more comfortable when I really know my stuff, right? So I'll just read it over and over again. And then truthfully, I mean, I'll black out in presentations. Like I'll just get into a zone and then won't remember it afterwards. You come off the thing and you're like sweating and you're just like, oh my God, did I do all right?
That's not true.
But it's interesting. I literally I always have a moment. I think we're all Filipino too. So I'm like, oh my God, I did terribly. You know, like I didn't do well. Like there's no way I was good at that. You know, it's like, you just beat yourself up and you always find the flaw because we're just not, you know, we're not built that way as people.
We're so self-deprecating.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, none of us, all of us I feel like everybody everybody's been successful, whatever, but I think we're always like, you're talking about thriving before. I'm like, I guess I'm thriving, you know, I'm doing all right. You know, it's like, so but no, I think a lot of it is just a lot of it is confidence, you know, and it takes time to build that confidence in yourself, you know, and I think you gotta fail a couple of times, you know, but then you gotta be able to dust yourself back, you know, dust yourself and kind of get back up again. But man, yeah, maybe I should have gone into nursing. I agree. I feel like there's definitely a thing of trying to kind of like, you know, it's like for me, I mean, I know people that listen to songs to kind of get themselves hyped up and stuff. I usually just like to sit for a second, make sure I have a glass of water, you know, like, and just kind of like steady myself and then just kind of, again, just kind of take a deep breath. And then I'll wake up 15 minutes later and I go, how did that go? Kristine, I don't know how you guys feel, but that's what happens.
Yeah, like practice. Like I will basically just run through the whole thing a couple of times right before, and and maybe this is more just specific to the pitches I've had to do, because it's usually just me pitching, you know, a show or something, but sometimes I just have to tell myself, well, the worst thing that will happen is that nothing changes.
True.
True.
Like I have to like take pressure off of myself in order to just like, you know, do the thing. And then when I'm in it, I just have to remember to not talk too fast, because there's a tendency to just like want to get through it, but then like I'll just stumble on things and it gets weird. So
Yeah, I'm the same way.
take your time. Better to take your time.
What do you think, Rosemary?
I actually haven't had to pitch. When I was at Nick, I was receiving the pitches, and we didn't. And I left before we got to the point where Nick was also going out to pitch to the platform. So by then, I had already come over here, and I was more focused on how like helping the talent pitch.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, one thing that we kind of advise our writers is to like really just focus on being able to answer the bigger questions and not get caught up in the details, because a lot of times we see writers getting really worked up on like, you know, the setting, you know, what's going on. And yes, you want to give context, but for the studio execs, like if you don't have them in like 5 minutes, they have so much other stuff to do. And that's just what it is. So they want to know like the key emotional core of your stuff. Like, what is it you're trying to say? What is that like big high concept idea that you have that they can wrap their head around, and then they'll go into the details with you with their questions. So it's just something to remind like yourself, because when you are reading and rehearsing your script, how many times does that include every other little detail like that, you know, you could probably just spend focusing on, you know, what are those big emotional beats you want to hit for your exec? So that way, that's what they take away and remember.
Yeah, that's great. Rosemary, that's great. That's awesome. I agree with all of that. To respect you guys' time, last question, and then we'll cut out. And then we can and sort of shoot the shit afterwards. But my big question, you know, I've only asked this twice, but you know, I really mean it. But like, there's been a lot of conversation recently around diversity and inclusion in storytelling. You know, how do we ensure that those aren't just conversations? You know, you know, we're in different positions, but there's a lot of talk about it, and you know, we can talk about it till our faces turn blue, but I don't want to just keep talking about it, right? What can we do to sort of change that tide? What do you guys think?
I'll go. Who want me to go? It's like
Yep.
Brady Bunch thing.
Jason,
Yeah, I think you know, there's a lot of I think about this all the time too, and you know, we spend a lot of time talking about it because it's always the fear that kind of where we are now is going to be a moment and not a movement, right? And I feel like I have a certain level of skepticism, because I feel like the conversation, at least kind of on what we do, happens every couple of years, where you have to like every couple of years they're like, you need more diversity, you need more inclusive, and then it hits a point and then it goes away, then it hits a point, goes away. And hopefully where we are now will kind of really turn the tide and be a thing. I mean, you know, for me personally, one of the reasons why I developed TV shows for kids is because when we were growing up, you know, the only time you'd see an Asian Filipino character in animation was they were doing karate. You know, that's it. There was nothing other than that. So for me, you know, it's like, hey, you know, we want to kind of change that. What's interesting is between the three of us in this call, you know, it's like we all hire people, you know. So for us, a lot of it is, and we talk about this a lot, is, you know, we've all at some point were given a chance and given a shot, and someone kind of like helped groom us to where we wanted to be. And you know, I think we all take it very you know, we take the responsibility very seriously that we have to hire up within and really like make sure that our folks succeed, you know, and really give opportunities and nurture and mentor and do what we can, speak out at panels like this, kind of be out there amongst community to really show those opportunities. I think specifically for the Filipino community, you know, for what we do is like we joke around about how, you know, the medical profession is such a huge part for us and our culture and who we are. And while that's true, there are opportunities within the entertainment industry, animation in particular, where there are jobs. You don't have to be a writer or an animator or designer. You can be anything. You know, there's like 1,000 different gigs on an animated series. So, you know, in addition to hiring people and training up, it's also creating awareness. You know, and I think that's something that we really need to kind of get out ahead of. You know, especially, you know, considering some of us are probably, like, I'm second generation Filipino, you know, it's like where we are with our families. It's really talking to communities and getting out there as much as we can, you know, and putting our money where our mouth is. You know, I think it's funny, you know, Rosemary, I don't know if you feel this, but it didn't feel the lack of diversity and inclusion as much when we were in New York, you know, just for whatever reason. Like, it just did. And I don't know if it's just because the city itself, or we're all on top of each other all the time, you know, whether in a subway train or riding in an elevator or, you know, whatever it was. But for whatever reason, I remember coming out here 4.5 years ago and just being just shocked, you know, and it was just bananas how just not diverse what the industry that we're in is, you know. So it's been a bit of a personal mission for me to be as outspoken as possible, and to really just kind of like beat the drum. Again, back to Filipinos, I think, and that's something that Rosemary and I were talking about earlier, or like, I guess last week or whatever it was, you know, as a people, we're not necessarily always the folks that are out ahead, kind of like singing our own praises, or really kind of like putting ourselves forward or putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions. Like, we kind of tend to kind of like just put our heads down and do the work. And I think it's a little bit of taking a moment to celebrate each other, opening these doors for our fellow Phil-Am folks, and kind of reminding them that you don't have to follow the path that was laid before you. You can do the thing that you want to do, and that there are people that are in actual positions that can help you get there. And that's why I always go back to Rosemary's team, because like that is legitimately that's what one of their purposes is, that, you know, for all people of color and, you know, all BIPOC people, the whole thing. So I'm lucky to tangentially be kind of to watch that happen. But then I also know from what I do and what our team does at Dreamworks, from a development point of view, like, we're really taking this all very seriously about making sure that we're representative of the entire population, you know, within the States and beyond. And then for me personally, it's a very big mission to kind of bring out voices from the Filipino community. And just really quickly, there's someone in the chats talking about the new host of Blue's Clues, who is indeed Filipino, and it is amazing, by the way. So, and he's a great dude. So,
I mean, I cried. I'm not gonna even,
like, oh, I know,
I
it was
cried
amazing.
when I heard about Josh. I was just like, this is, because I watched Blue's Clues when Steve was on it, you know, and granted, I had already outgrown Blue's Clues by then, but my siblings were watching it, so I was too, and I wasn't afraid to just say, like, yeah, I still love this show. So to see Josh out there just killing it and just being so great, and now it's just like, oh, there's someone that looks like us on TV that people see every day, and actually recognize that he's Filipino. Because sometimes, I mean, I was joking about this with Jason not too long ago, like, my mom had an index of all the people who were actually Filipino that you didn't know were Filipino. Like, I don't know if your family ever did that, but like,
oh, yeah.
Did you know Rob Schneider is part Filipino? Like, that's stuff I would get from my mom all the time. But it's just like, no, but you can see Josh and see, like, he's clearly Filipino, and, you know, I mean, it's just awesome. He's doing it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just say, you know, for everyone here, I mean, like, you know, the whole, you know, thing of like Filipino-American History Month is that we make ourselves present, and in our industry, we make ourselves seen. And there was one thing that I experienced not too long ago this year, of like, I've been in animation for a long time. And then when I started to connect with Filipino writers in Hollywood, I realized that they had this whole congregation group that supported each other. And I didn't know any writers. And I specifically like Filipino writers, but they all looked out for each other. They were like comedy, drama, everything else. And there's a real community there. And I don't know, you saw that, Kristine, as well. Like it was new for me.
There's a spreadsheet. Did you see the spreadsheet?
Fucking spreadsheet, man. There's a
All the
spreadsheet
Filipino writers.
that just
I
goes
want to see the
so
spreadsheet.
I want to see it too. That's
I need a
incredible.
spreadsheet.
crazy.
Or there's like a roster of Filipino writers. Bernard Badian put it together. It's very handy. Sent it to
That's
many.
awesome.
I like Bernard. Yeah.
Amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I never saw anything like that, like beyond like 2020. And I know, and did you go through that like holiday thing, Kristine? Anyway, doesn't matter. But like all that said, the Filipino animation writing community looks out for each other. And there's there's spreadsheets, there's community get-togethers, and I never experienced anything like that in my life. And it was so overwhelming just to think that they did that, you know. And Kristine is a success story, and you know, there's a lot of other people that have spec scripts that are trying to, you know, like hustle and make it in, and you know, anything that we can do, I can do to help them kind of get in. I mean, shoot, I mean, there's a lot of talent there, so I don't know. What do you think, Kristine? Just talking now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally agree. And if you haven't gone to things like Filipino AF before, I highly encourage it. Have you guys?
It's really funny.
I remember I went to the first one, and I was behind like someone's mom who had a full ream of rice cakes sticking out of her purse. They were like, there were jokes, like I understood every joke. They were throwing sky flakes into the audience.
Oh my
and
God.
I feel like this is amazing.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
It was, yeah, I just like, I almost cried that first time because it was just like,
God.
everything was made for me.
I am missing out. I need to do this.
That is
They do
incredible.
them
by the
online
way.
now, so.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
It's
I'll
super
ask
funny
one-
too.
I'll ask one more question before we sign off. And so that maybe we can kind of think about this while we sleep on the toilet or anything like that. But but as far as Filipino stories go, what would you like to see more of in the future, whether it's live action or animation?
That's a great question.
I just want like a Filipino version of a classic, like, you know, like Full House but Filipino. Like I just want us to like
Yeah.
it just to
I
be
watch that.
a show where it just is, and it's about a house where there's 3 refrigerators.
And inexplicably, they're all full. Yeah, they're just all.
Exactly. Awful. One specifically for like the daing and like anything that like really smells.
Yeah.
Something that feels like home, but like our home.
Yeah.
All right.
Love that. Friendships, though, I feel like I'm such a sucker for friendships, but like just being able to explore how we could be in the center of a friendship and not the side character, like that would just be amazing to see. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, for once we could be the mains and not the supporting cast would be really exciting.
Yeah, romantic
Rosemary,
leads.
what do you want to see from the main?
From the main?
Mhm.
I mean, just somebody that feels relatable, like the same embarrassment that we go through whenever we're bringing a weird lunch to school, or, you know, like when your friends come over and your mom's frying like tilapia and you're just like, I'm sorry. Or just like being tricked about like what chocolate stew is, like, I mean, that's a mood. I just felt so betrayed when I learned it wasn't chocolate. So, I mean, and if that's not champorado chocolate rice, that's like dinuguan there it is. See, someone in the chat was like, the chocolate rice. I'm like, no, I enjoyed the chocolate rice. The real
Sorry. Sorry, Rosemary. you said it before, but like, where are you from your family is from in the Philippines?
My mom is from like Malolos, Bulacan, and my dad is from Cebu, and they both immigrated to Texas. So I was first gen, and I don't know why the hell they picked Texas. It's like, would that be where you would find your Filipino community? I didn't know it until I really moved to LA, actually. My mom is so proud that I live so close to a red ribbon. Like, she was in tears. She was like, Nang, just bring me some next time you come home. Like, bring me the ensaymada and the ube, mamon. And I was like, okay, Mom. You know, I don't know if it'll make it, but you got it. You know, that she was just proud to know that I was going to be able to be surrounded by the Filipino community that we didn't have growing up once they left the Philippines. But I was still a balikbayan. Like, I'd go back and get made fun of for being American or all that stuff.
I was gonna ask really quickly, and when you go back, do you understand Tagalog?
Me?
Speak Tagalog? Yeah.
I can understand it. I definitely know when they're talking smack about me. Like, oh, I know what the ba means. Okay.
Oh man.
I mean, or like matakaw. I'm like, yeah, I love the food. I'm gonna eat it. But like, I definitely understand, and I can speak just like real broken.
Sure.
But it's really funny because whenever I'm talking to like my Filipino relatives, instead of just speaking Tagalog, I'll speak like English with an accent, like a Filipino accent. And for some reason that feels like it helps. I don't know.
It
like,
does
is
help,
it easier?
Rosemary. It totally helps.
It does, right? I'm
Yeah,
just like,
it
that's
does.
what my uncle sounds like.
Yeah.
Jason, all I want to ask is like, when you go back home, what's your province and how's that go for you?
So my father's from Cavite, my mom's from Mindanao, but I haven't been back to the Philippines since I was 1.
Have
Yeah.
you been to Mindanao?
I've never been. It's the saddest thing. It's like I went when I was a little baby and have never gone back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. One day I'll make the big pilgrimage one day and do it. It's just like, it's hard. We actually, my cousin got married a few years ago, but my daughter was, I think she was 1, or she was just born, and the thought of bringing like a newborn on a plane to go to the Philippines was just not we couldn't wrap our heads around it.
Right.
So that's the thing. So yeah, no, I haven't gone back. It's really, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, one day, I mean, I'd like to go back one day.
What do you mean? How long has it been since you've been back?
43 years.
40 years?
40, yeah. I mean, I went when I was 1. Or 2. I don't know. I have these very adorable photos of a tiny little me in the white T-shirt running around, but it was like, I haven't been back, since. Like, it's a thing.
Oh.
It's really funny. I mean, I don't know what it was, but when we were just growing up in New Jersey, and we just didn't go back a lot. I mean, it was really expensive. That was one thing, right? But we just didn't do it. And then the few times that my folks would go back, they'd always go back for, like, honestly, at a certain point, a lot of my Filipino family, my dad was 1 of 10, my mom was 1 of 10. Most of the brothers and sisters were in the States. Mm-hmm. So they would typically go back, usually, honestly, for like funerals, like really sad stuff. So it wasn't like we were going.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? So it was like, so for me, a lot of the experience was coming out to flying to San Diego, where a lot of my dad's family was, and just being there and kind of seeing everything and being around everybody. But like Kristine said, I grew up, in North Jersey. There's a pretty large Filipino community.
Yep.
It's like, we would joke. We saw Bruno Mars before we left. I think it was in 2014 or 2016. And we saw Bruno Mars play at the New Jersey Pacific Performing Arts Center. And I swear to you, every single Filipino from North Jersey was in the audience, because it was just like, it was exploding and just smelled like garlic and rice. But it was like this incredible thing. But we just never went back that much. But I also grew up with a ton of family. Like, my mom's family was based in the East Coast. My dad was here. And then we just kind of would see each other. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. I mean, were you gonna say, Kristine?
My family lived in Jersey before they came here, actually.
Oh yeah, so you
I
got.
never lived in Jersey. It was before me, but they were in Trenton City, I think, and then came here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, I mean, like, it's not a question of like even kind of like going back and how, Kristine, Rosemary, and Jason, how connected do you feel with your Filipino heritage being Filipino-American? And I'm not going to judge. You can say 0 or you can say 10%. But like, I guess I'm just kind of curious. I mean, like, I'm not super attached to them. So I don't know. Does that question make sense? What do you think, Kristine?
I don't know.
Oh,
I think that I mean medium connected is that
oh, I guess I just mean I don't know. I guess I just mean like day to day. I don't know. Like maybe I just been thinking about this too much, but like my American heritage versus the Filipino heritage and how much of a connection I have with that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Kristine?
I think yeah, I guess I'm like medium connected because I
You can say
don't
0.
understand. I know I can't speak Tagalog. My parents actually speak Kapampangan more, so I get confused between the two sometimes. But every time I go to the seafood city, I just go crazy. I have Toblerone in my kitchen right now. I have like sinigang packets for when it gets cold.
Nicely done.
You're ready.
Right.
You're doing
I
it.
guess yeah, that's awesome. Christine, no worries, man. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're probably more connected than I am.
I feel like I need to do better. I think that's yeah. I mean, there's just always this feeling that I should learn. I should learn how to speak.
Christine, I'm with you. I don't speak either. You know, I know the bad words, the commands. I can tell. I know when I'm in trouble. I know when it's time to eat. You know, there's like stuff that usually the things are very. I mean, and I can pick up on certain things, but I don't know. I mean, I think the crazy part about Filipinos too is we assimilate so well, right? It's kind of a thing. It's why like Filipino food is finally starting to have a bit of a thing now, when for years it just didn't. Even though it's incredibly accessible and always delicious, and if you brought in lumpia or pancit to like school one day, everybody loved it. You know, it was always that thing. But I'm with you. Like, I'm probably. I mean, I want to be more connected personally, you know, but I feel like this was something that happened as I got older. You know, it's like we were connected to our families, very much so growing up, but you know, my family we didn't go beyond that. Like I grew up with people that like knew all the Filipino families all over the place and always got together every Sunday or whatever. And for us, we just always got together with our cousins and things, and that was it. But you know, I think it's the one, you know, for me, and you know, as I got older, I kind of wanted to learn more about my culture. But now that I have a child, it's even more so than that. You know, like small victory, but like I love that we have a rice cooker that's usually making rice almost every day. You know, like to me, that's like it's just little things. Like for me, it's like connecting to home, which I think is also connecting to our culture. But just things that kind of remember growing up with, especially being in LA, where we have like I have one cousin who lives in town, I have another cousin who lives further out, and then everybody else is back east. You know, so it's like trying to find ways to connect to family and culture is a similar thing. So, you know, Bobby, you know, it's a tough thing. It's also, you carry that guilt with you, right? You know, it's like, it's really hard sometimes.
That's just like a Filipino thing in general, the guilt. That's
True.
no matter what. So if you have that, sure, you're connected. You're good.
Yeah, but I don't want to lose that though. I mean, like that's the thing. Like I think that's the biggest thing. Just kind of like I don't want to, Jason, like you said, like you know, making rice in the rice cooker and that kind of stuff. Like you know, I mean, like we can sort of assimilate and everything else, but I would want. Wouldn't you think? Like
oh, totally, yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the. I mean, I think it's part of the hard part of our culture as a people is it's like quick to assimilate thing, and the way we kind of very easily get in and kind of, not that anybody forgets, because it's funny, like we all have those friends Filipino friends who are very quiet outside, but the moment you're with your group of friends or with your family, everybody is just like chitter chatter and like kind of doing their thing, and it's kind of no holds barred. But the moment you're outside, you get very quiet, So I feel like, we do, I feel like there's been more of a want to kind of, and you're right, it's just to remember kind of where you came from, right? And connect with your past a little. To even go things like, I get really crazy whenever I find ube ice cream anywhere. I get super psyched. Or like went to Wanderlust for the first time a couple weeks ago and got a ube ice cream and an ube cone, and it was my head exploded because it was so good. But like
forget
stuff,
the pandan also.
oh my God, yeah. It's just stuff like that. Like you just find things and you just kind of, it brings you back a little bit, And Seafood City, it's just all of it. You walk in and just like walk out with a big bag of rice and you feel good, like just anything you can. And what I find is any way you can to connect back is kind of, it helps keep it going,
Kind of cool because like now I actually work with a few Filipinos. Like I have 3 other Filipino like role models on my team, my direct team. Like my VP is Filipino and 2 of our senior directors are Filipino, although Grace Moss is going to Warner Brothers, but that's like 4.
Really?
Yeah, she's going over to Warner Brothers on today's her last day, or tomorrow's her last day. But yeah, that's like 4 strong, like Pinay women on a team fighting for more diversity and inclusion. So like that, that in itself is just super empowering. And I think moving to LA, I've probably felt more connected to my culture than I ever did before. And now, like my husband and I bought a home in Arleta. So that neighborhood's like 50-50 Latino Filipino, and that's literally our household. So it's so perfect for us. Like I can go to Seafood City and stock up on Filipino food and then go up the street and go to Vallarta and still make like fajitas later that night. So, it's just a really nice way to feel like we're just embracing every bit of our culture. And it's just good to stay woke about it. And the Tagalog piece shouldn't be a definitive bit of like my Filipiniana or anything like that. I feel like, it's just about being able to connect with other Filipinos, whether it's in Tagalog or English, and just know like we're going to support each other in this community. And like, if we're going to be in animation, we want to see other Filipinos thriving in animation, like, and not necessarily,
right,
holding it against them if they could speak Tagalog or not, because I feel like I got it so much growing up. But like now, like with my mom getting older, I feel like it just takes her so much energy to speak in English that I've been trying to do more to like learn it so I could speak with her more. So it's just something like that just feels like, okay, I feel really in touch with her now. And then also like, just being able to know what I'm ordering and not falling for the chocolate stew again. Like, that's huge. I'm so traumatized if you can't tell.
Yes.
What's going on in the chat is pretty great. I've used the drops before, it's really good. I love how active it is. It's really.
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
If you guys see anything in the chat that you want to bring up as a question, let's do it.
Never used drops. What's
It's like a language teaching app. It's good. It's really good.
Oh, that's awesome. But there's just stuff like, it's funny because we don't really get to see as much Filipino culture in Texas, but like when Dante Bosco's The Debut came out, like I cried. I was like, where's my debut? I didn't, but he's got a new show coming out too, I think. If you guys haven't seen it, it's like the Fantastic Filipino Brothers.
Sounds exciting.
Okay.
Exciting.
I can start this off from the Q&A on the chat. Audrey Isabel Mantana. She says, if you have how have you incorporated aspects of your Filipino culture into your work? Was it conscious, unconscious?
Ooh. There was one episode of The Great Indoors where we had to have the two characters, they wanted to talk in secret, but in front of other people. So they're like, we'll speak in Kapampangan because they were travelers, and had to have my dad come and like translate, lines in Kapampangan, and then had to get my sister to like record him so that the actors would get the pronunciation and everything. But yeah, so The Great Indoors is an episode where they speak Kapampangan, and I got a lot of random Facebook messages about it.
I remember the only thing like really quickly is like I was watching Kipo stuff, and then I saw your name, Kristine Songco, and I was like, oh, Rad, she's a writer, right? She can write and like she can write and run my show. And she's like, no, man, she's amazing. She's running another show, and man, you're too late on the Jurassic Park stuff. So I'm like, oh, shit. And anyway, but he also said like, yeah, she's amazing.
No.
So, Rad, come on this call. Rad, get out of here. Kick you out. Just kidding. Anyway, what else? Let's see. Are we still doing like Q&As and that kind of stuff? Like, what do you guys think? Jason, Rosemary, like, what do you guys have time for?
I mean, here, I gotta just in this box. So,
Yes, in this box. Okay. Help me out, Kristine. Let me see.
See some Q&As. Are they different are we all seeing the same Q&As?
I hope so. I think so.
Oh, okay. I think I have one in because I guess you can do
there it is.
chat questions to people or in the big chat.
They're separate.
I liked, how did you convince your parents to let you pursue entertainment?
Yeah,
Ooh.
that's a good one.
That is a good one. I didn't. I mean, I don't know, you guys, I just kind of did it, much to the dismay of my folks. Like, it just kind of happened. And for a while, there was a lot of like, are you sure you don't want to go back and become an X-ray tech? Or whatever it was. So there was a lot of that.
That is a very enticing moment. I'm like,
yeah.
Or
no,
you can do what you want to do.
No, exactly. And I was, when I was PAing, like, I also, didn't have insurance. I was doing, it was rough for a while. I mean, I remember, working, Rosemary, like I worked at bars. I did you just did the thing to kind of pay your rent, and you kind of, and all of your friends that were working in finance that did really well. They were very kind to kind of like just buy you drinks at the bar, or just take care of you. And, you want to give back, remembering those moments where somebody would just buy you a meal or a bagel because you were just hungry. But I just kind of honestly just kind of did it. And, I still think to this day, I don't really know if everybody kind of understands what we all do or what I do, but I think, but they're definitely proud still, I think.
Hustle.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I think I'm in the same, I think it was like a month away from graduating, like within 4 years and with honors and everything. And my mom was like, are you sure you don't want to be a nurse? And I was like,
yeah,
I'm not changing it now.
I know.
I guess one thing that kind of helped was that I also minored in English. So I was like, because I knew I wanted to write at least. So it was like, well, I have this, and it kind of helped them be like, that's kind of a fallback.
Yeah.
But I just, same boat where it's just like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what happened. My mom literally just said, bahala ka, and like, go on. You're on your own if you're gonna do that. But then you're not really on your own. Like, they were still super supportive. And they kept me on my on their insurance until like I was 25, thank goodness. But yeah, I think it's interesting because they knew, like when I was interested in in the arts, like from middle school, they knew that that's what I loved doing. And I think just seeing how much I loved something convinced them that, you know, it would just be the supportive parent thing to do, besides just saying, you know, you're on your own. But no, they knew how happy it made me. Just like running around and like making videos with my friends in high school, like being the nerd that I am and getting like a Letterman jacket for video tech, like they were like, okay.
That's the least
She
cool
loves that stuff.
Letterman jacket for video jacket.
Do you still have that jacket? I hope you still have that jacket.
It's in Houston, yeah.
You gotta break that out,
but
man.
it's purple. Like it's our school colors were like purple and white, so I just look like a giant varsity Barney. Like, so it stays in Houston too.
Words. I just wanted to, you know, I think a lot of it is just kind of like the writing aspect of it too, as well. You know, so if you'd like Kristine, she was like, Kristine is funny, and Rosemary, you're funny, and Jason, you were also funny. Like, I think the biggest thing, you know, in 2020 was probably the 2020 writing, like, kind of like, you know, things that we're going through. And I'm the least funny of this people. So I was like in charge of kind of like, oh, you know, who cares, you know, who's funny. But like Rosemary, Kristine, Jason, you guys are all fucking funnier than I am for a fucking decade. So, but I think, you know, for Disney animation, I mean, whatever, you know, they kind of had their own kind of like stipulations and that kind of stuff. So, you know, I mean, but I think, I don't know, I think Disney animation is kind of like a little bit safe in the comedy. Don't you think, right? They're a little bit like, kind of like, whatever. I mean, like, yeah,
They're family friendly. That's their brand.
they're family friendly. Did you guys like the Raya trailer?
Yeah.
I mean, it was exciting. It's definitely really cool to see.
Awesome. Yeah, our niece. Oh yeah, I forgot that we're on a little chat. But yeah, I think it'll be good. I think it's gonna be a great movie. So, but anyway, but thank you guys for. I should close out the panel, but thank you, Jason, Rosemary, Kristine. Thank you for joining us for this panel and sharing your insights. And I mean, you know, that's. I really appreciate your time and effort and kind of just like shooting the shit and all that kind of stuff. So,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Maria is still here? Maria, are you still here?
I'm here, but I'm in the background.
Oh my God. You've been here for like 4 hours of nonsense.
I can enjoy the panel too, Bobby. It's a great panel. The stories are amazing.
4 hours of nonsense. Holy moly. But yeah, but I really appreciate you guys' time and effort, and let me know how, you know, things go with you guys in like 2021. Please keep in touch. Shit, I know.
Bobby, I love that your dog's popping in the bottom corner of your screen. It's just been like a joy to see.
So cute.
So
Makes me happy.
Yeah. But I know. Yeah. but I really appreciate you guys, Jason and Rosemary and Kristine. I know you guys are busy. You guys are execs and highfalutin executives in the industry, and so it means a lot to me that you guys can make the time to just kind of like be silly, for like an hour.
I think I'm silly most of the time. We're not. We're not too unsilly around here.
This channel is so silly, and I think I like to keep it silly, and I like to keep, I like to invite like people that are doing well in the industry, thriving, and just be silly with them. But yeah, man, that was a lot of fun.
Felt very seen today.
Yeah, same here.
What's that?
I felt very seen. It's like all these very specific jokes that everyone gets. It's great.
So, what's funny is like you guys are probably used to doing a lot of like academic stuff, like, and then you come to this podcast and you're like, this guy is doesn't know anything about anything. So, so we can let loose.
This was great.
No,
I also
it's
really appreciate,
awesome.
Kristine, how you and I have similar brother and sister age differences, and that Rosemary is actually our big sister. We just don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Even though
she's picking us up for soccer class, or soccer practice, and the whole
Bro,
thing.
come
Just like, yeah.
or your dance class, because that's
Dance
the
class,
other
yeah.
alternative career as a Filipino. Is
God.
your
Oh,
b-boy
yeah.
skills.
Yes.
What if you don't mind me asking, like this has nothing to do with the audience, but like, what did you guys hope to accomplish in 2021?
Ooh.
I'll start with Jason. You look.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I can't talk about them, but there's some really exciting products that I've been working on that I can't wait to take out to pitch next year, and hopefully greenlight some things and sell them. I mean, personally, it's also too finding a really great family comedy, and would love to be that's Filipino based, Kristine. I think that'd be really fun to do in terms of like stuff that we make. Personally, I want to be able to go outside again, and just be able to be amongst the people. I mean, that's a thing. To maybe go to Jollibee and eat indoors. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to do. But besides that, it's just kind of like doing business as usual. I think the thing about being animation, and we're all very just lucky about this, is that we've all been able to keep working. And it also just on some level got even a little busier. So it's been good. But I just every day kind of, I count my blessings and very, very grateful that can still make animated series and work with people that are understanding about that. But yeah, it'd be great to crack that first, Filipino starring led animated series for kids. It'd be really, I mean, we always try to make sure as we're talking about characters, who they are and the whole thing, but I'd love to tell that story if possible,
Hey, I have something to pitch to you.
Come on down, bring it by. Yeah, please.
I have an overall with Disney, but I will pitch
When you're,
eventually.
when you can. I don't want to, unless you're
Never
stuck,
that
but when you're free.
ends. We'll
Yeah,
be
when you
here,
end, I'm always here.
Totally kidding. No, I do have it.
He's like, no, but really, I can't.
No, really, I can just no. Well, it's just
So funny. If any of them are on the call, I'm just kidding, guys. Jeez, Rosemary.
For 2021, I am very excited that we will be able to launch our Universal Animation Writers Program. It was kind of delayed because of COVID, because we actually put the application out around this time almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's just been delayed due to everyone kind of figuring out what working from home was going to look like. But I think it's safe to say we might just go ahead and proceed virtually for now. So that'll be really fun to get that off the ground next year and just kind of get to working more with the great folks over at Dreamworks. And then we're also working with Illumination. So that's, really exciting to kick off. But like Jason, I would also like to be able to go and eat in in a restaurant again. Like, hopefully these other places can, continue to thrive. R.I.P. Ma'am Sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Rosemary? Perfect. What do you think, Kristine? Where you at?
I would like to sell something original. I've been very fortunate to be on other people's projects that I love, and it's been wonderful, but would love to have something that is mine be what I'm working on. So hopefully more things will start going next year, and yeah.
That's great. Awesome.
Also being outside, same goals, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just
wear the mask. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Bobby, how about you? What are you looking forward to next year?
I can't talk too much about it, but I'm at Disney to develop my own project that's based in the Philippines.
Cool.
So, and then that's it. I mean, that's all I can say. But
is it a show or a feature?
It's a series, like a show.
Nice.
Yay!
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's why I even came to Disney, just to develop a show. And I mean, like in all candor and honesty, I mean, like I just think, like, well, at this time, at the time in your career, you're just kind of like, well, I mean, there's nothing out here that's Filipino based, and I want to develop something that's sort of like explicitly Filipino based. So that's what I'm doing now. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Straight to green light. Come on,
Seriously,
Disney.
I know. Make it happen, you guys.
Yeah. That motivation, man. I mean, like, they're Disney's super supportive, and with everything from D&I and the people I'm working with, they're backing it. It's just all up to me whether I can make that show happen, kind of thing. But they're super supportive of it, so. Yeah.
Get the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this magical spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Make the spreadsheet.
Love it.
I mean, everyone wants to do that, man. So, but we'll see. So I think it's pretty good. But we'll see.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
Hey!
Yay! The spreadsheet.
Yay, Kirk.
What? Oh, what?
Link to
Oh,
the-
Kirk is coming? Oh.
Oh, that's not the WGA one. I could probably find the WGA one.
Yeah.
I'll go hit them up.
But, on that note, guys, I thank you for coming and being a part of this. It's so funny. I mean, like, we do these panels, and at the end we're like, can we just catch up more? Like, after that, kind of fucking panel, after that bit. But just in the respect of just kind of like everyone, letting them loose. But I hope you guys keep in touch with me, and Rosemary, Jason, and Kristine. I mean,
Are we allowed to hit you up for stuff if you have an overall deal for Disney? Like, if I were to say, like, hey,
No.
not to do work, but just to, like, talk to our writers or something. Be like, about cultural authenticity. Are you allowed, or is that forbidden because you're with Disney?
Shit.
He hit stop record.
And
No,
just
exactly.
off record. For the record, he said no.
Honestly, I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, then we won't ask. We won't.
fucking funny.
Just do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, the only thing, I will put it out there, whatever, if I'm going to stay with Disney or Netflix or Dreamworks or whatever, my main goal, I'll put it out there to the audience, is I want to make a Filipino-based show series. And that takes place in the Philippines. And it's about a Filipino-American going back to the Philippines for the first time. So that's kind of like the whole bit. That's the whole
funny.
thing. That's the bit, right?
Oh my gosh.
Just kind of like an American person who goes back to the Philippines for the first time, and she hates everything. She doesn't like the food. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't speak the. She can't get around the culture.
I'm gonna cry.
So that's my pitch, putting out there in the universe. This is our platform. So and Rise Up Animation can do whatever the fuck they want, but like, but that's what it is, and I think it can hopefully sort of relate to other people, like no matter what culture they are, whether they're Greek, Spanish, European. When you go back to your home country for the first time, holy moly, like what is that experience even like, right? You're fish out of water in your own country, you know, Jewish, and you know, anything like that. So I think that's what it's probably gonna be. So whether it happens at Disney or Netflix, wherever.
Look, Kent wants to take Jason back to the Philippines. We'll document his experience.
Ken, I'm down. If you, I'm happy to go.
Listen, Jason, we can go back together and we can be writing partners. We can go back as Filipino-Americans and go, what the fuck? Like, we don't speak the language. We don't eat the food. But like, there's so there's so much shit in the Philippines that we're missing out on because we're closed-minded. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And you know, I mean, you know, we seem like the underdogs at some point, but we're actually like we're kind of the assholes a little bit. I mean, just kind of like, well, maybe we should kind of open up our mind a little bit and kind of, you know, like reach out to our culture and country and family and all that kind of stuff. So all of that kind of stuff, you know, Jason, no knock on you. You're
No, I hear what you're saying. No, it's cool. Yeah, I get it.
You, man. Yeah.
I would watch that series in a second. No, I would watch that series in a second, and I will also say that I hope that your show goes at TVA. Like, I think that'd be amazing. I think, you know, and you know, I mean, Bobby, whenever you're free to chat, man, I'm here. You know, like I would love to. It's great to meet you on this call, and we should talk. You know, even if, you know, I do have, you know, obligations and things, but it's always just good to get to know more people and to kind of get out there and kind of how can we connect? Because the truth is, I meet with Filipino writers and I can send them to you if the moment you're staffing your show. You know, I would love to send people to you that you know, sometimes we just don't have space for, can't, you know, they don't work out for whatever reason. I'm happy to forward them to you when you're moving.
Thank you so much.
And the thing, of course, yeah.
Saving this Google Doc.
Rosemary, send it to me.
I will.
I wish it was like a private chat, but like here's everybody else. But I think with everybody else, I think that's amazing, man. Yeah, thank you. You know, I think at some point you guys have all crossed paths at some point, but like, it's great to meet you guys, and I don't know. Like, I think
Well, we're feeling the love for sure. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, this is really nice, Bobby.
Yeah.
We'll
Really
stay
fun.
in touch.
Go watch Jurassic and Kipo season 3. If you haven't watched it yet,
Hey.
watch that stuff.
Ayo.
Real good.
Awesome. But yeah, year's almost over. Goodbye, everybody. It's great to meet you, Rosemary, Jason, and Kristine, and yeah, it'd be amazing. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Do we leave?
Oh, you can leave. You can
Okay. I was like, I wasn't sure if we had to. Okay. Bye.
Bye. See you guys.